morning to all of you and welcome on our sunrise safari. My name is Jamie and this morning Dave will be on camera once again. And we are coming to you live from the Masai Mara here in Kenya, and we're off in search of the Agama pride that lives right on our doorstep, and I heard them roaring all of last night. Because this is a live safari from both Kenya and South Africa, you can send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Rebecca is in final control this morning. How are you doing, Rebecca? Who's your D2? So we've got Jake helping Rebecca out and Chantal and Djuma. And speaking of Djuma, I think Tristan would like to say good morning from that side.
Well guys, good morning everybody and welcome to our sunset safari from here in South Africa. Now, just apologise for a bit of the gremlins that are creeping in with Jamie over that side of the world, but hopefully this side will be fine and we'll be able to continue with you for the next part of the morning. Now, my name is Tristan and on camera today I've got Sebastian, and it is live, it is interactive, which means hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat should you want to engage with us and ask any questions or have anything else that you'd like to say. It's always nice to hear from all of you. Now this morning we have had lions roaring to the north, so I'm just heading northwards just to check and see if there isn't any sign. There's also been hyenas whooping around the camp most of the night, and we had some naughty elephants that decided to raid camp and come into the parking lot and deposit a whole bunch of dung and trap Alice in the FC. It was all quite entertaining last night, so they were around, so lots to follow up on this morning, and hopefully it will be a productive morning. It is very warm considering the time of the year. It's not exactly cold at all this morning, and the sun is, well, I would say probably about 10 minutes from coming up, and it's going to be probably a very nice day. That's what I'm hoping for. There is a bit of a breeze already, so I wonder if this front that is supposedly supposed to arrive tomorrow is on its way. It says that it's going to be a lot cooler than it was yesterday, so we're going to try and see if this front does arrive, and hopefully it won't, because we've had such magical sightings in the warm weather with all the elephants around and with our leopard luck as well. So a cold front, while a bit of rain would be nice, but not the cold weather, because that sends everybody into hiding, so we don't want all of that. Now, the reason why I'm checking up here is because yesterday the Nkuhuma Pride went towards Sydney's Dam and nobody could find them. Nobody knows where they went from there, so you never know. Maybe they turned back and came towards our side and are somewhere here around Vuyatela Access this morning. I did hear lions roaring, but I doubt it's the Nkuhuma Pride. In fact, we very seldom hear the Nkuhuma Pride roaring these days. It's generally the Birminghams that roar, and the Nkuhumas just stay quiet and move around as and when they need to. So I don't think it was them. It sounded more like males calling, so it's worth just having a little look for them in case they did come back into this area. So far no sign though. But those Ellies last night did make me laugh. Sebastian and I, we stayed at Inga's and we got back to, well, a scene of destruction. There was trees all over the place, and Seb walked through and there was an elephant drinking out the swimming pool. So it was having a little drink and looking at us and wondering what were we doing at home. It was almost like a little naughty child. And then I just had to speak very nicely to them, and I was very polite, and I asked them, please will you guys leave, and they promptly then walked straight out the way that they'd come in, as if to know that they were in trouble and that they were being naughty. And they then from there walked straight without even stopping to the FC, and then they stood around there feeding, and Alice was, like I say, trapped in the final control. She had to wait for somebody to come and rescue her, and then they went down, and apparently they were making friends with Rusty the last time they were seen, and they were around where Rusty is parked. So the Ellies were a handful last night, but that's okay. Rather have that than no Ellies at all. Now, I'm going to carry on up this road. I'm going to check for any signs of these lions, and while I do that, I believe Scott Dyson is up in the air this morning.
Hello everyone who is joining us on the Sunrise Safari. Thank you to Tristan. Oh, there's an elephant. You guys have joined at a good time. We've also just dropped down from a high altitude to a low altitude, also a buffalo there. My name is Scott. I am sadly not up in the balloon, but Manu is, and he is doing an incredible job on camera. This is wonderful. Hello to Taka, who's just 5 years old. I am very happy to have you up in a balloon in Kenya, and you are interested to know if it is only the boy elephants that like to swim. And no, both the boys and the girls love swimming. They love throwing mud all over their body, and getting wet is something that all elephants, young and old, boy and girl, like to do. That was a young boy that we saw there. Looks like he may have just started moving out of home, and it looks like he's going to be thinking about starting a life of his own away from his mom, which is normal when they grow up. Here's another herd of elephants. This one looks like a mom with very long tusks, and a youngster to her left. Very, very wonderful. Well, I hope you guys are enjoying being out with Tristan, and now up into the air in Kenya. Jamie Patterson is on the ground in the Masai Mara, searching for anything interesting, and it's great to have her back. We had quite a lot of the crew head off on a much needed break to the coast, and they've come back loaded with good tales and are certainly, I'm sure, looking forward to being back in the saddle here. So that's what you've got to look forward to. I think after the balloon ride, I may switch over to the river cams, and we could get some action there. So all in all, it looks like we're set for a good safari today. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but this is my first narration of a balloon trip, and I'm absolutely loving this experience. I haven't spent too much time checking out what the balloon's getting up to. Oh! Shame the bird disappeared under the balloon, but Manu did go for what looked like a lapwing there. It was quite ambitious. It was a small bird flying very quickly. But I guess you've got to go for whatever is presented to you, and there's no stopping this balloon or slowing it down. Some buffles. There's some massive buffalo up here in the Mara. It's a very, very good habitat for them. And I guess the plentiful grass provides these guys with good nutrition, both male and female, so you get some incredibly large specimens. So this seems to be the river road that follows the Mara River, and there's usually lots of zebra here, but I haven't driven down here for a long time, and it appears they've all moved off, and I guess they may have been caught up with the migrating herds moving further north from here. You'll be glad to know there's more herds coming from the south in Tanzania, and you'll be also glad to know that you're about to jump on board with Jamie.
I agree with Scott, of course, that this is the perfect habitat for buffalo. And speaking of buffalo, this is where we had them chasing Agama cubs not so long ago. And what astounds me, Dave and myself have been away for a few days at Diani Beach, because we're very, very lucky that way. A big group of us went for just a few days break to unwind ever so slightly. And the transformation of the landscape, in hindsight, I wish that we actually had done screenshots. We'd driven to one place every single week and done a screenshot just to see exactly how much the grass has changed since the wildebeest have been here. Dave, can we zoom in on that little cave there in the lugger itself, there where there's a pile of bird droppings? I found an owl's nest one night, and I've never been able to find it again in the daylight. Nope, no owls, but they do love to nest in those crevices in the walls of sandbanks. This particular one, I think, was a marsh owl, and I've never seen it again. Anyway, let's carry on. I mean, the landscape really has transformed. It's astounding how much grass has disappeared, and most of that is thanks to the thousands of wildebeest that have gathered here. The rest of it, of course, is just the fact that we're in the dry season now. And I wish, from the beginning when I first arrived in the Mara, I wish we'd done, it wouldn't have had to have been every single day, but a screenshot once a week would have been perfect. Where you could have really compared the two, because you don't notice the gradual changes until you look back at old photographs. But I mean, we used to follow the Agamas around here, and you could barely see them. And once they were in the grass, that was it, they were gone. And now, as we make our way towards them, and I'm assuming that the collection of vehicles up ahead is for the Agama lions, we should be able to see them no matter where they go. Oh, the Agamas have been busy. Thought I smelled something smelly. Ex-wildebeest grinning at us. Oh, look at that. Look at the long claw. I've seen this so often at the moment. I've seen the rufous-naped lark, and I've seen the yellow-throated long claws picking away at old carcasses. It's fascinating because they're not exactly predatory birds. Little micro-vultures. Interesting. Seem to do it a lot at the moment, and there's plenty of food for them. Here's another one. They might actually be after the insects that have gathered around the carcass itself, rather than picking away at the remains. Okay, that's grotesque enough for one morning. Let's go find the lions and answer Mita, who is 8 years old. Mita, you want to know if I'm missing the animals at Djuma? Yes, of course I am. Mita, I do miss them. I think it would be really lovely to see how much Shungile and Hosanna have grown. Oh look, lions. There we go. We can chat about this while we look at some lions. Little Agama cubs. Oh, this is a horrible place to park, Dave. It's smelly. So yes, Mita, I do. I'm really sad about Vutomi, and I'm sad that I didn't get to see him, because he didn't make it, of course. And I'm still involved with the various WhatsApp groups of the Sabi Sand, and one of the things that I learned that I'm sure has been shared with all of you, but one of the things I learned from the Panthera WhatsApp group was that Kuchava's also been seen mating with Tingana around the same time Tandi was. So yes, I miss them, but I still keep track of what's going on. I miss the hyenas as well, especially because we don't spend that much time with hyenas. But everything comes with its ups and downs, so I've got to know so many different lions and experience so many different things. Elephant in the background. I want to go find the youngest set of cubs. I want to see how big they've got. Oh, and a balloon. Beautiful. Hello, ladies. Where did all the wildebeest go, huh? Last time I drove past this area, there were thousands of them. Now they've all gone again. Just like that. Imagine what's been going through these cubs' minds when all of a sudden the buffet arrives at their doorstep. Wild Bill, while we watch our little cub, or disappears behind a bush, but practice its hunting skills on a sibling or a cousin, you want to know if adrenaline will play a role in a lioness's hunting instinct. Yes, I think it does. I absolutely think it does. Lioness or male lion, having witnessed some of the moments that we have while we've been out in the Mara during the migration, to watch the instinct to kill and to chase, I would say that there is a role that adrenaline plays. I don't think it is without it. And they get hyped up. They almost get drunk on wildebeest. Their tails start to thrash. They get this almost glazed look in their eyes when they're in the middle of a mass hunt, where it's almost like they're completely unstoppable or insatiable. And speaking of adrenaline, of course, one thing that I did experience, and I'm glad I've experienced it, but I would prefer never to have to do that again, was the other night just before the TV show last week, where we were right in the middle of one of the main herds. And I'm not exaggerating. I thought about it afterwards with as much rationality as I could. I mean, I have to move anyway. And we were in probably at least 50,000 wildebeest, I would say more, when those young males were hunting. And then what happened was, you can go. Okay, I can go then. What happened was something chased them from the opposite direction. Whether it was hyenas or another lion, I'll never know. But the absolute chaos that we found ourselves in I can't describe the numbers, and I don't think it's actually possible to convey what the numbers are like. But these panicked creatures running not straight, but in circles, in eddies of panic, round and round and round us. And it took Vim and myself probably about an hour, at least an hour, I think it was closer to an hour and a half, to get out. Because everywhere that we drove, we had streams of wildebeest moving towards us, and it was probably the most uncomfortable I've been out here in the wilderness for a very, very long time. Well done, Tristan. He too has achieved his goal. Let's go and see what he's found for you.
He's gonna use that pass. So maybe if we wait there.
Now, we have got a surprise for you guys. Unfortunately, it is behind that bush, so we can't see it now, but it is hopefully going to pop out and come towards us. It was nicely out in the open, so I'm not going to give it away just yet. Hopefully, it will give itself away as it comes from behind there. This is where it was walking, is into that thicket. Don't see any sign of it, Seb, I'm afraid. Maybe unfortunately we are sitting on the boundary of Buffelshoek, so I can't go any closer, and that's why I'm having to sit where I am now. I'm not sure if this particular individual is going to move and come further towards us. It will be interesting to see if it does. I hope it does. It was coming through that thicket there. Now, let's just see, Seb. I'm just going to try to go forward slightly, because there's a little game path here that it could potentially be walking on, and hopefully we'll be able to get some sort of view from here. No, unfortunately not. There's no sign that I can see. Maybe, there we go. It's because it's not moving. Good there, Seb. So if you look straight through that gap, you will see the large mane of a male lion. So there we go. There's one of our boys. I can't tell exactly who it is from here. Looks like maybe Nhenha from this distance, but it is one of the Birmingham boys, and there is another one that is moving from the north coming south towards us. So there is another Birmingham boy here as well, and hopefully the two of them are going to stand up and move closer to where we are. They're still way in the distance at the moment. They're at the dam, and I'm hoping that after that drink he's going to sit for a little bit. Sun's going to rise, and then he's going to start moving southwards towards us. That's the hope anyway. Whether or not it plays out, I'm not quite sure, but isn't he magnificent? You can see that big mane that he's got. Now, for some reason it almost looks like there's heat haze at the moment. There shouldn't be any heat haze at this time of the day, given that the sun hasn't even risen yet, but nonetheless it's still always good to see a big male lion first thing in the morning. And hopefully, I'm really hoping, there's a little hoopoo in front. So an African hoopoo's got a mane of his own, if you so to speak. A little crest on top. And you can see Nhenha's busy watching the hoopoo. That's very cool. Now, of course, his distance is being flattened by the camera. That hoopoo is quite far from that lion. It's not walking around right near it, and the lion couldn't really be asked to go after a hoopoo of that nature, of that size. It's certainly not going to fill a male lion, and it's going to be far more effort than he needs. He's just looking because it was a bit of movement. But I was saying just now, hopefully with the sun rising, there'll be one big belting roar that will be let out by these two as a final stamp of their territory for the morning. It certainly will be nice if they do. But I wonder where the other one is gone. No, there's the other one. You see it, Seb, it's walking away from us now. It's walking actually northeast. So that's not ideal. I was hoping it would walk towards us, but there goes the other one, walking away from us. It was coming south, but now it's turned east more. Let's see, maybe it's going to get on the road. Looks like Tinyo from here. You can see that scarred up face. He's almost got a bit of a sort of darker muzzle than what the others do. So I would imagine that's Tinyo, and then we've got Nhenha over here. I think that's roughly what it looks like. I'm not 100% sure. As we can see, they're very far away, but I think that that's who both of these individuals are. Now, I'm hoping there's a road that comes north-south that Tinyo is heading towards, and I'm really hoping that he's going to get onto that road and then just turn south like he was doing earlier. The thing is that if they're both drinking and they've both been moving around this area, it is in all likelihood possible that maybe they have a kill here somewhere and he's now walking back towards the kill. Chitty chatty Meg, the mains do get darker as they get older. So you found with the Birmingham boys, if you go back on some of our footage, and you'll see that when they first arrived here, they were small-maned, blonde, and as time has gone on, so they've become dominant, which means their testosterone levels increase, and it causes them to produce more melanin as well as to grow that hair out around the face. The melanin then causes the mane itself to start to darken up quite a bit, and so previously you would have seen Nsuku and Nhenha both had quite light blonde manes, but now there's a bit of darkness creeping in, and the patchiness around the throat and back of the head is getting darker, and as time goes, so that will get blacker and blacker. It'll never be fully black, not like the manes of some of the lions in this world. So if you go into the Kalahari, their manes tend to be a lot more black. Our lions here in the Kruger very seldom get deep black manes all round. They generally have this mixed mane where there's a bit of blonde and a bit of dark brown black in them as well, so they don't get the same sort of looking manes as what the lions in the Kalahari get. They also don't get quite as puffy a mane as what you'd see in East Africa. Dr. Rob, you want to know what the Birmingham's names mean, and I was actually just thinking about that myself. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll try give it a bash, because I always get them confused. But as far as I know, Nhenha is a warrior, and then you've got Nsuku, which means gold, Tinyo, which is tooth, and then you have Mfumo, which is the authority. I think I've gotten that right. Hopefully that's right. I'm sure many of you will remind me if it's not, but I think that's about the gist of it. Now I know it was Brent and James and Jamie were the ones that got all these names together and made sure that they all make sense and are correct, and so I think that's how it is. Of course, when I was at Simbambili, we didn't actually refer to the Birminghams by any names. They were just the Birmingham Coalition, and we saw so little of them during last year's period that it actually really didn't kind of ring true to us. We didn't have the sightings to even recognize who the individuals were. We were just excited every time we managed to see one. But over time now, since being here, starting to kind of recognize who's who and be able to work out what the names are and what they mean. Now, our lion is looking majestic and beautiful and is just about to wait for the sun to rise, and so we're going to spend more time with him. And while we do that, I believe Scott has got an aerial view of some of lions of his own.
Morning everyone, and I am still on the ground, but at least I am not narrating, or at least things have changed, the balloon, and I'm in a more familiar environment. This is the river camera on Main South in the Masai Mara, and there is a yellow-billed stork looking for breakfast. Let us see if I can get you a little bit closer. Oh, I always get the joystick the wrong way around. And a sacred ibis, who just seems to have joined this yellow-billed stork in its quest for some breakfast. Quite interesting that the sacred ibis is following behind. I don't think there's any major benefits of the ibis being with the stork, other than company. More eyes equals more safety, and even these predatory birds have predators of their own. Now the yellow-billed stork, you can see, is just kind of opening its beak and slowly waving it through the water in the hope that it's going to feel a little bit of movement and then clamp down on a fish or a frog. They will very occasionally use their feet to assist in trying to find their prey, but certainly they don't use their feet as much as another bird like the hammerkop, for example, which uses its toes quite remarkably to assist in its hunting. Beautiful. Let me see if I can zoom in a bit closer here. Okay, yeah, that's full zoom. And what I'm actually going to quickly do is, oh, what happened there? Did the ibis get something? Just saw quite a quick movement. I'm going to zoom out slowly now. Ooh. So, lots of vehicles over there. What could they be looking at? They could be waiting for a crossing. What I'm going to do is, there's another camera further upstream. I'm just going to show you that one quickly. And then that's where we're going to go next. Okay. There's the camera at main north. Marvelous. I'm going to flick a switch and take us to the view from there. Okay. And then we should be able to see the vehicles all piled up there. Yep, there they are. Okay. Now, once I zoom in, the color should get a bit better. Or the composure, not really. What am I going to have to tweak something here? Let me tweak the iris. There we go. I can't see anything. Can you guys see anything? Morning, everyone. Let's zoom in a bit more. Make sure they're all behaving themselves. Yeah, everything seems in order there. Happy tourists. What are you looking at? Magic. Okay, well, I'm going to keep trying to work out what those people are looking at. They could just be waiting for a crossing. There could be wildebeest coming down from a distance, or zebra, and people often invest a lot of time just waiting at the crossings. Cha-ching! Now, this is looking seriously good, guys. Look at all these wildebeest. Whew! Well, that explains why all the vehicles are here. Have they started crossing? No, we're just in time. Now, I know Jamie has just found some lions, but I don't know if this would be an opportune moment to send you to them unless they are about to jump onto a wildebeest's back, which it sounds like they are not, but good prospects. Tristan's got lions, Jamie has got lions, and we have got a crossing that is imminent. Let me give you another idea quickly of how many wildebeest there are. There are so many coming down. Oof, you see, when I get excited, then I start, my control of the joystick starts dwindling rapidly. So that explains that little falter there. Now, I don't want to leave the front runners, because as soon as one of them pops in, oof, there's lots. But let's just have another quick scan. Zoom in. I mean, there are loads of wildebeest. Sorry if you're getting seasick. I just want to try and show you the numbers of them. Ooh, guys, we are in for some action here. What lucky timing. I'm so glad you guys were with us when this was all discovered. I actually drove past this crossing yesterday. I was parked with some of you guys actually on the Sunrise Safari. I was parked just to the left on the left-hand side of the screen where you can see that long yellow grass. I was parked looking kind of straight towards the camera here, and there was a few zebra on the other side of the river that were thinking about crossing towards. Oh, there's the first wildebeest in. It just slipped in, but that's sometimes all it takes to trigger the rest of them. But for now, they are just quenching their thirst. Let's just zoom in and give you an idea of just how many there are. I mean, look at that. How cool. I'm going to tweak the iris again. Don't know if I was tweaking it the right way. Oh, there we go. That looks a bit better. Very nice. Very, very nice. Now it's maybe a bit too dark. There we go. Whew. Well, exciting stuff. Now, like I said, one of them could slip in and start the crossing, or one of them could get a fright and run backwards and take them all in the wrong direction. It could take a couple of hours for them to build up courage. There is no way of knowing. Now, this doesn't look like such a bad crossing point, but Stanley, you wanting to know why do they choose such ridiculous spots to cross? And yes, there certainly are some terrible spots that they decide to fling themselves off into the river. But this isn't such a bad one. I guess, it's going to be difficult for them to know where all the best spots are. They're traveling such huge distances, and even seasoned migrators will probably not remember every little crossing point and place to go. They just follow the general direction and general weather patterns, which brings them up here. So, if you likened it to us, it's just simple lack of knowledge and desire to get from A to B, which forces them, or doesn't force them, it just causes them to maybe make some bad decisions, simply due to lack of knowledge of the area. Then again, wild animals do have their strengths, as do we as humans, but brain power tends to be our biggest asset, and not necessarily for the wild animals. What a scene. I'm going to zoom in again and just pan across all of them for you. Seems like they're not going to go anytime now. They could, of course, but let's just take that risk, and then we'll pan you across slowly to give you an idea of how many of these beasts are queuing to cross. Oh. Isn't this fascinating? I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wildebeest, which could be resulting in a herd of a couple of thousand, who knows? I mean, we can't even see all of them. But certainly good prospects. I am going to keep a close eye on them, and we'll be sure to call you back as soon as any action unfolds. But for now, we are going to send you up to Jamie with some lions.
While Scott's wildebeest are indecisive about whether or not they should hop in the Mara River, we'll keep you entertained with the Agama lion cubs. Now, they are relatively far away. They're on the opposite side of a massive dried-up river system, their favorite place. Oh, but with all the grass having been eaten, we've got a perfect view. And I did actually see two of the youngest ones a little bit earlier, trotting past, and you'll be happy to know all of the cubs that I've seen so far could not look fatter or happier. Their bellies are positively scraping on the floor. Now, Paul, and for all of our new viewers who are perhaps new to this particular pride, you want to know how many members of this pride there are. There are, let me just think for a second, I've just done this, so let me get it right. There are 4 lionesses, adult lionesses. There are 7 older cubs, 6-ish months, around there, maybe a little bit older, maybe a bit younger. Then there's 3.5 month or 4-month-old cubs, and then there's 3 little ones who are just over 2 months now. So that makes 13 cubs and 4 lionesses. And I can tell you that numbers like that mean that the migration could not have arrived at a better time for this particular pride of lions. It means that their cubs have been really well fed. And in the beginning, we spent a huge amount of time following the lionesses of the Agama pride before the wildebeest arrived here. And they were hunting almost constantly all through the night to try and keep their family fed. And I've just noticed there's about 3 wildebeest carcasses around us. So they've been doing very, very well. And as it happens, luck of the draw at the moment, the wildebeest aren't here right now. But there's a very good chance if it rains a little bit, they'll be back once again to the foot of the escarpment. The little ones, the tiny little ones, I only saw 2, but they've ducked off to the right into the drainage line. Well, what I think I'm going to do is just go forward a bit to where some more vehicles are parked and just go see if we can catch up with the rest of the pride. They seem to be on the side of the road. So let's go see if we can get a closer view of them up ahead. Might even be there's a male with them. I don't know yet. Let's go and find out. Goodbye, ladies. It's nice to catch up with them again. Haven't seen them in days. Just have a look. Michael, I haven't done a proper count yet in terms of how many of the cubs are males and females. I can tell you that there's at least 2 male cubs from the older group, but beyond that I'm not 100% sure. I haven't spent a lot of time with them recently. So once we get a view of all of them all together and they conveniently turn to face us, then we'll be able to we'll be able to work out exactly what the breakdown is between males and females. And it's something that we're always fascinated with, because provided the cubs survive, and chances are not all of them will, but provided the cubs all survive, you've got a really nice idea of what the future holds for them, because once they reach a certain age, if they're male cubs, they're going to move off on their own. If they've got the advantage of having siblings or cousins, it's really going to help them in the future. Haha. I suspected this was what we were going to find. And if you know how many female cubs you've got, then you know just how much that pride is going to grow once those females reach adulthood, and how much of an advantage that will be. Hello, little monsters. Oh, I'm glad we came here, Dave. Aha. So we've got the 3 middle cubs and 2 lionesses by the looks of things, scraping away at the remains of a rib cage. Oh, we've got 4 little ones. Oh, good. That means that the 3rd tiniest cub has survived. For those of you keeping track, you kind of need a notebook and a pencil for this. But it means all 6 of the youngest cubs are still alive. Yum. What are we feasting on? I'm going to guess wildebeest, Dave. What do you think? I'm going to go wildebeest. Although, nah, wildebeest. Hello, little ones. Yes, get the tail. Get the tail. It's actually really lovely to catch up with them. They have grown a lot since I last saw these cubs. Those fierce claws of the one on the right. It's tough work getting through the skin, isn't it? But already at this young age, already fully equipped weapons-wise. Sharp, strong claws. Still got his baby teeth, but they'll do. They're sharp enough. So I suspect that the 2 lionesses we have here, we saw the 3rd one, and I suspect that the 4th one is off where the little cubs disappeared off to. Is that a second kill at the back there, Dave? There, behind. Yes, it is. Carnage. The carnage of the migration. No wonder those cubs were looking so fat, and we've only got half the pride. It's because they've already killed at least 2 wildebeest that we know of last night. Those other kills were slightly older. What a time to be a lion in the Masai Mara, where food basically walks into your mouths. The other night when we were sitting in that wildebeest chaos, I watched that male lion take out 7 wildebeest before I got distracted with trying to get us out of there. It was absolutely crazy. Oh, are you talking? Can you hear that, Dave? Oh, I missed that sound. That's brave. Facing those teeth. Now, while we watch this, Lara Moore, you want to know if we're seeing an increase in kills while the cubs mature, perhaps. I would say we're seeing an increase in kills because there's more to see and there's more to catch. The lions are really just, when they hunt a herd of wildebeest, they are killing on average about 2 or 3, probably even more. So we're seeing an increase in kills purely because there's an increase in number of prey. But as the cubs get older, yes, the number of hunts initiated by the lionesses do increase because there's just more mouths to feed. And the cubs are getting bigger, therefore they're eating more, and therefore the lionesses actually have to keep moving in order to keep them fed. And I always think that lionesses who have essentially teenage cubs, around about a year old, I always think they have to work the hardest of all lions, at least in the sense of hunting, because they've got to provide for those youngsters, and at the same time the 1-year-old cubs tend to mess up the hunt on a regular basis, so they've got to counteract that as well. Aww. Could you get more precious? Well done, ladies. See the notch above her left ear? That's the mother of the second youngest cubs. There you go, you can see it clearly. So she's the mother of the 3.5-month-old cubs, this lot that are coming to cuddle with her. Easily identifiable. Right, we've distracted you long enough with playful, adorable lion cubs. Let's go and see if the wildebeest have made a decision yet.
Well, that certainly is an adorable sighting you are having with Jamie. And no, the wildebeest have yet to make a decision. I've given you a kind of view looking upstream of these massing herds. So we're on the main south camera now. If you can see the rocks in the foreground, so I'm going to zoom in here. You can see a little kind of stump in the water at the bottom of the screen sticking out over there. And then all these rocks between us and the wildebeest, that is the main crossing point. And what the Migration Control Officer, Mr. Henry, has informed me is that in his experience at this crossing, the wildebeest arrive where they are now, and then they come a little bit downstream and cross on those slippery rocks, which makes for quite some viewing. Okay, now I'm going to go across to the other camera, further upstream. There we go. Oh, sorry, Bex. I'm just going for a churn, leaving poor old Bex in a cloud of dust in the FC. So there we are. Now we kind of further upstream and in line with them. And then if you look, this is where they're likely to cross here, where I'm looking now. So these are the rocks. They come straight down the barrel of the camera. So that is what we are looking for. Now, James, you've just asked about quite an interesting question regarding how many other animals may die during the migration period due to diseases that the migratory herds bring in from Tanzania. Now, I've got absolutely no idea on any possible diseases that they may carry, but I guess rotting wildebeest carcasses like this one may cause some kind of illness to some animals. I'm not convinced, though, that they are going to be carrying huge amounts of disease and sickness. I think the sick and weak die and get left behind. And I'm just looking there. I know there's a few more carcasses here also, just stuck against the rocks. Pretty gruesome. But it will all get used at some point. The fish will be loving snacking on those decaying carcasses. And The wildebeest seem to be massing, putting more pressure on the individuals closer to the water. Let's take you in for a closer look there. Phew, look at all of them. Another prediction from James is not only that they're going to cross where I showed you now, on the rocks, a little bit downstream of where they are, but he had a rough guesstimate that it'll be at least about half an hour or so before they pluck up the courage. So obviously in his experience here in the migration control, he has learned that they very seldom arrive at a crossing and just immediately fling themselves in. Understandably, it takes a little bit of courage building. Ah, Sandy. Good question. You are asking, excuse me, do the wildebeest actually need to cross the river? And yes and no. I mean, I've been astonished by how some wildebeest will be in areas where there's seemingly not a huge amount of food, and others in areas where there is a lot more food. Now, obviously, it's difficult for them to know the exact best place to be. The general migration movement bringing them north up into Kenya means that there is going to be, in theory, better pasture, but some will get lucky and strike gold and walk through areas where there's been a lot of rain, and others will be less fortunate. Yet they still spend quite a lot of time in these seemingly unproductive areas, at least that's what I think. But yes, I mean, they will need to cross rivers at some point in time during their migration, whether it's the Mara River or the Grumeti River in Tanzania, or even the Talek River, a small tributary running into the Mara River here in the reserve. I mean, they do need to, it's an obstacle course, and they've got varying obstacles, rivers being one of them. The amount of times they need to cross definitely could probably be limited if they had better planning and if they had better insights into what the weather was doing. But these guys, for example, could cross onto the eastern side of the river, and tomorrow there could be an almighty storm on the west, and that's going to draw them back across. So I think a lot is kind of out of the individual's control regarding decision making. And they tend to probably just go with the flow a lot of the time, especially the younger wildebeest. They're just going to follow the elders, presuming they are taking them to the right place. But it definitely is not a perfect science, and it's not as a well-calculated an affair as I think us as humans would like to think it to be. They've got a general idea of what they want to do, and the execution of it, like I said, may not make perfect sense. Oh, some zebras lurking in the fray. Interesting. Clayton, you would like to know what is the average lifespan of a wildebeest and how many of them will actually die without being consumed by something, so i.e. die of old age and or sickness. We see quite a few that have died of sickness, actually, but in terms of a percentage, I wouldn't be able to hazard a guess. It would be a very, very difficult equation to work out. How many are killed by lion? How many drown? How many are killed by crocodile? How many die due to an injury, a broken leg or a twisted hoof? It would be just, there's so many of them that it would be a very, very difficult analysis to work out, and that's why I'm not even willing to hazard a guess. But I think, yes, a few will make it to old age and die naturally, but the majority of wild animals will not have that luxury, or maybe they will have the luxury of being put out of their misery by a predator before the pain and misery gets too much of being old or injured. Okay, well, I didn't answer how long their lifespan is. I'm guessing anywhere between 10 and 15 years would be a kind of average lifespan for one of these wildebeest. You'll get random outliers that possibly live to older than that, but that is my guess. I'm not exactly sure on their lifespan, but I think that is probably a decent guesstimate. Good stuff. We are going to continue to keep an eye on these massing wildebeest in the hope that they decide to plunge themselves into the Mara River. and we are going to be sending you back down to Mr. Tristan Dix, who has sadly lost his lions, but on the search for something else, who knows what.
See them from where we were, but they did serenade us with a beautiful roar, and we had them calling, and the sun was rising. It was all very, very pretty, so it was really nice to at least get a quick glimpse of the two of them. Hopefully this afternoon they will turn south and come towards us, but I'm on a rather quick mission now to the southern boundary, because it sounds like the Styx Pride may be crossing north. I can't hear very nicely at all, but I got Styx and I got Mulawati, so we're heading in that direction. So we're going to try and see, maybe we get lucky with the Styx Pride. Wouldn't that be quite a surprise? We haven't seen them in a long, long time, so that's where we're going to head. We also know that Thamba was in that area yesterday, so it seems as though a fairly good bet to head there, and maybe we get lucky with one of the two cats, whether it be the big tawny ones or the small spotted one. We'll see. There's also obviously been a lot of elephants around the Mulawati, so we're going to try our luck down there. Hopefully though, the Styx haven't moved too far and are lying somewhere close by that they'll be relatively easy to find, because the eastern side of the Mulawati, if that's where they've crossed, is not a friendly section of Djuma. It's very thick, it's very dense, it's not an easy place at all to drive around, so we're going to try and see if we can't just get lucky and that they're lying out in the open. That will be the best bet. But I think we're in for quite a warm morning, and then as far as I can understand, the weather is going to change fairly shortly. Let's see. I think we'll take Vulture's Nest, because Vulture's Nest is probably our quickest way to get to our best. Time to catch our breath.
I'm sorry about that. It seems as though Tristan has disappeared off your screen. At least I assume it was Tristan that you were with, discussing whether or not he was going to go and find the Styx Pride. We haven't had to do much searching though. Essentially all Dave and myself had to do was drive down the road and arrive. Oh, one very... I love it when they do that. Cub is contentedly suckling, and all of a sudden the female decides to roll right over. Cub still attached and flailing. Hello, girl. You being harassed by 4 little ones this morning. Now, Rebecca, I assume we are actually live. Otherwise, I'm talking to myself and to Dave. Oh, good. I'm thrilled. I'm very happy to hear that. Otherwise, poor Dave might be very tired of the sound of my voice. All little cubs have got full bellies and have even managed to score a drink of milk. I don't know where the 7 older ones are, but I suspect somewhere back where we were earlier. Now, I think the name is Kate. Did I get that right, Beckles? I didn't get that right at all. Ted. That doesn't sound anything like Kate. I'm very sorry, Ted. Ted, you want to know what age the cubs will start participating in the hunt. You'll actually, if you watch Lions with Cubs, you'll watch them trying to learn from around about 8 months old. It's only really at 1.5 years that they become even vaguely useful in the whole situation. But if, for example, you've got a situation where there is a wildebeest calf or a buffalo calf that the lionesses have caught, at 8 months old the cubs will start, or between 8 and 12 months old, the cubs will start practicing their whole killing operation. And from then on, all they are is a spanner in the works. They don't know what they're doing. Their instinct tells them to hunt with the lionesses, but they have a tendency to tip off the animals that they're hunting way too soon. They get over eager and they race in, or else they make some other kind of mistake or get distracted and again give away the position of the lionesses. So the lionesses actually have to work quite hard to counteract the effect of inexperienced little ones practicing, but it's necessary. It's all part of their growing up process, and it's something that they have to learn to do. And then 1.5 to 2 years is when they really start to get the hang of things. Look, I mean, these little cubs, even at the age that they're at now, it's quite possible they've killed things before. Little things, a rodent perhaps that's run in their direction, or a lizard. But that hunting instinct is... Paws in the air. That hunting instinct is well and truly entrenched already. And then it's often the youngsters of a pride, the 2-year-olds, the 2.5-year-olds, that are the ones that constantly initiate hunts, because they're still learning. That instinct is so powerful when they're little, or when they're younger. Isn't that peaceful? Paws up in the air. The one's using the other one as a leg rest. Look at that. I'll just put my feet right here. Welcome to Rebecca while we watch this mixture of actually 2 different litters. Rebecca, the amazing thing about lionesses is that no, they don't only suckle the members of their own litter. They will suckle any cub that is part of their own pride. They do what's known as allo-suckling, and that is quite unique. It's very, very unusual in the mammal kingdom. It does happen, but for lionesses it's all part of the social bonds and the success that they have made in terms of being nature's only real large social cat. And what actually happens is that the lionesses, partly for that reason, will synchronize their estrus or their heat cycles so that they fall pregnant at roughly the same time, and so that they can allo-suckle each other's cubs. And it works, it balances out in the end. One day one lioness might have 4 cubs, as she does here. 3 of them are hers. One is a hanger-on, who's come from a litter either belonging to her daughter or to her sister. So they're all related to each other, and therefore they're all invested in the well-being of the cubs, which I find quite special, and it is very unique and very, very unusual. So no, it doesn't have to be their own cubs. It does have to be the cubs of a member of the same pride. And what the end result of that is that you get a cub pile like that. It also pays to be the oldest cubs in a group, doesn't it? Because if you're the oldest ones, even though your mother might have stopped lactating, you might still be able to score a drink from the mothers of the younger cubs. Okay, little sleepyheads. I think perhaps it's all died down now. The cubs are now going to go straight to sleep with those enormous bellies, and I imagine that our lionesses have something similar planned for the rest of their day. There's no wildebeest, and having had, well, at least 2 breakfasts, I don't think there's any reason for them to go off hunting. So I'm going to go and search for something else exciting to find. Let's go to Tristan, who has proved his luck once again with spotted cats.
Well, look who we've bumped into. Once again, that's 3 out of 3. You can see the spots behind there. So, Brent, you're falling behind once again. But our little green-eyed boy is in the same place as he was yesterday morning. So there's the beautiful Thamba. There's tracks for his mom going northwards, away from where we are now. I was just looking at her tracks, and then Seb spotted him walking on the bank right next to us. So he's in the same place. He's watching Franklin's, much like what he was doing yesterday. And still on his own. Shame, boy. Now, the Franklins are all around him once again, much like what we saw yesterday. And he's watching them and looking at them. Now, don't lie down there, please. But you're going to, aren't you? Yes, you are. Because you can see, look at that camouflage right there. So if you were driving past now and you weren't paying attention, that's how difficult it can be to spot a leopard. He's no more than 5 meters from us, but you would really struggle to be able to see any sign of him from where he is now. It's basically just little ears in the grass, and he's lying in there because of the Franklins shouting at him. I'm sure he wants them to all go away and to stop making a noise, and so that's why he's positioned himself in that thicket. But we are being so spoiled by this guy to be able to find him day after day, or drive after drive like we have, has been so special. So I'm very glad that we have found him. Hopefully this morning he has a little bit more of a restful morning and doesn't get pushed around by the big grey pachyderms that were around yesterday. So I'm hoping that he's just going to have a good restful morning, and Mom will come back with a surprise for him. That's what I hope, is that there's going to be food and we'll be able to follow him and Mom towards where a carcass is. So our Styx mission is going to have to be put on hold. I was just saying earlier, when we unfortunately lost a bit of signal, is that Djuma has been so good to us recently. We haven't had to actually spend too much time on Chitwa. We haven't had to go to the dam too much because we've been kept busy by so many tracks. Oh, look at those eyes. So many tracks and so many cats on this side of the world that it really has been fantastic. We've had lots in our backyard, so to speak. Paul, you're wondering how the injured leopard is, which is you're referring to Shadow. Unfortunately, don't know, Paul. Since the day that we've seen her, she hasn't been found again. We've looked in that area, and we're finding tracks for her, but we just haven't been able to find her. As I was mentioning the one day, it's an injured leopard like that is not a leopard you want to be walking around on foot with. It's a leopard that's going to be feeling nervous. It's got a cub, and so we've been giving that area a bit of a wide berth. We haven't been walking in that area too much, just because we don't want to stress her in any way. We want her to try and have the best possible chance of recovering, and so we've left her to be able to kind of just sort herself out. And we will take a turn past there now that Taylor will be back this afternoon, and it's not just myself. We'll be able to concentrate a little bit more about driving in that area and spending time in that area, because at the end of the day, when it's just me, we kind of get a bit distracted, and we've had so much time with this little boy that we see here that I haven't been able to spend enough time in that area to actually look for her properly. But I know some of the other guides have, and they haven't come up with anything just yet. The ears are moving again, eyes are all over the place. Typical little Thamba. He's such a curious cat. He always is looking around and checking, and he seems to have this thing where he likes to look over his head. Basically, he kind of tilts his head back and looks backwards without turning his head around. Maybe he's just too lazy to swivel. It's easier just to flop it back towards his back and watch over that way. I wonder if that's where he's going to settle. It looks as though he's getting a little bit sleepy. You can see the head is bobbing. I think he might put that head down. If he puts his head down, we're really going to battle to see him. Riedel, you want to know what is the ages that lion, leopard and cheetah cubs become independent from their mothers? Well, that's quite a long question, so I'll start with the leopards since we're looking at little Thamba. Leopards, generally between 14 months and 2 years is when you will see a leopard breaking apart from its mother and moving off into its own territory. Remember that both female and male will separate from the mom and set up territories, and they will then no longer see each other as a mother-daughter or a mother-son relationship. If the male tends to spend more time here, he's going to then see that female, even if it's his mom, as a potential mating source, or his sister, or anything like that. So they set up territories, and they are then, if it's a female, in the fringe of the mother's territory. If it's a male, generally distributed away from that area. So anywhere between 14 months and 2 years, but we do know that sometimes it happens earlier. Sometimes females will push their cubs out a little bit earlier, around the year-old, or sometimes even as much as 3.5 is the oldest cub that I've ever seen with the female. She in fact had a new litter by that point and was able to raise not only her big 3.5-year-old male, but 2 1-year-old males at the same time. It was quite a feat to see her do so. In terms of lions, if they're females, generally they are absorbed into the pride, so they never actually get pushed out by their moms, but they are able to take care of themselves and become individuals that are mature and sexually mature and breeding at around 3.5 to 4 years as a female. Sometimes they can mate a little bit earlier than that, as at 2.5 years, but generally most females will give birth to their first set of cubs around 3.5, and that's when we kind of classify them as no longer dependent on the female. But 2 to 3 years would be a time that sometimes the females will push the males and particularly the females away and start mating and potentially having cubs of their own again. So that kind of bracket. In cheetah, very similar. So it's all the same. It's around 2 years until, if it's males, that they'll then get pushed out and go and form a coalition on their own, or if it's a female, she'll get pushed out and try and find her own territory. So it's generally around that same sort of period, around 2 years for all the cats, but it depends on the social structure. Remember, like I say with lions, that the females will stay within the pride. Males generally then get cast aside by the male himself and not the females at around 3.5 to 4 years old. Right, I'm going to try and reposition a little bit just so that we can see if we can't get a better visual on Thamba, because of course Seb has got the sum total of an ear to focus on at the moment. So Seb, I'm going to try and get up this little bank here. Hopefully Rusty will be able to do it. Are we going to be able to see him from behind there though? Because we're not
there and then
now, while I try and kind of get myself into position here, let's go back to Jamie, who I believe has got lollipop trees, whatever that is.
Rebecca thinks the trees look like lollipops. I'm not entirely convinced, I have to confess. I'm not sure if perhaps Rebecca doesn't know what lollipops look like. I mean, if lollipops were highly irregular in shape, I guess maybe. I kind of see it, Bex. I kind of see it. Which ones are the lollipop trees? Surely not the Balanites. Otherwise, I don't think what you think are lollipops are actually lollipops. So let's have a question here for all of you. Do you think the trees look like lollipops? Rebecca is convinced they look like lollipops. A forest of lollipops. I have seen some trees where I do agree that have got rounded crowns. Okay, right, let's move on from our lollipops. I guess it's one of those things you either see or you don't see. I miss Thamba with his big ears and his green eyes. Sounds like he's been doing well though. I don't know where we're going now. I'm going to go and see if I can find where the wildebeest are, so that at least I've got somewhere to start for this afternoon / tonight / tomorrow morning. Perhaps have a quick glance about for the sausage tree pride as well. So just to provide some explanation and some background behind that for our viewers who are unfamiliar with the pattern of things. So essentially tonight we will be out. We'll be out from this afternoon. We'll be out all night, and we'll do a rehearsal for the television show tomorrow morning. Then we'll go back out again tomorrow afternoon. We'll be out all night again, and then we'll do the television show on the Saturday morning. So essentially it gives us a really good idea to figure out exactly what's going on. At the same time, obviously, if there's any kind of action, provide you with interesting and exciting Facebook Lives, just to give you a real impression of what it is that goes on during the migration. Right. There are no wildebeest here, only lollipop trees. Let's go back to Thamba with his big ears and his green eyes.
Well, we've managed to get ourselves into a much better position where we can admire the beauty of our little rock star, is what we probably should be calling him lately. Look at those eyes and that little pink nose, and he's just looking up a little bit now. I love it when he does that. When he just looks up slightly, those eyes really come alive. But he's lying no more than, what, Seb, I would say 2 meters from us. And he's just watching us from behind. There we go, the car is right here. So there is where little Thamba is, and he is completely chilled. He's just kind of looked around. He was watching Seb for a little bit, then he was watching me as I was moving around a little bit. But he is, as you can see, not really fazed by the fact that we are sitting so close to him. And I'm surprised, because I remember the first few times I saw Thamba, he wasn't really that chilled on his own. He used to be fine if Mom was around, but as soon as he was by himself, he used to be a little bit more wary. But maybe over the last few days, because we've spent quite a bit of time with him, he's just getting used to the fact that we're a part of everyday life at this stage, which is fantastic news, because the more time we spend with him, the more relaxed he gets, the better it is for us. But look at those eyes. Boy, have you had a long night? He almost looks a lot more sleepy than he was yesterday. And the birds are still shouting at him. Oh, look at that. Going to yawn. I believe a lot of you are saying just how pretty he is and how beautiful he is. I know a lot of you were mentioning on social media that he's stealing your hearts, and he's slowly but surely becoming a favorite, I think, of a lot of different people. The more we spend time around him, the better it seems to get. And oh, look at those eyes. There you go. Now hopefully he'll look up at us again and that blade of grass will disappear. That is incredible. Look at that, guys. Screenshot right there. Yeah, Seb says thank you. Wow. Now, for those of you wondering about any markings on his face and around the eyes, that is about as close up as we're ever going to get of a leopard and its markings and how it looks. And so for ID purposes, as he grows and maybe distributes away, shots like that will be the best thing to use. And you can see, look at that membrane that just came over the eye. Wow. It's not every day you're going to get close-ups of a leopard eye like that. Is he still watching around? Oh, look at that. What are you looking at? I have no idea what he's staring at. I think there's a little leaf that's moving above him. Look at that. Rito, you're saying that it's interesting that Thamba at 1 year old is as big as that his 10-year-old mom. Well, you must remember that the females don't get anywhere near as big as what the males do, so the males are almost double the size when they're fully grown. So it's just how it goes. Unfortunately, the females, they have a tough time of it when their sons grow up, because it's a lot of work to keep a individual of this size fed. What are you after? Oh, big yawn as well. You are spoiling us. I think there's a leaf just above him that's blowing. I can't see anything though, or maybe a branch that's moving, because he keeps watching the same little branch. Or it's a spider web. That's what it is, Seb. Look, there's a spider web. He's watching a spider web that's floating in the breeze. So it's obviously picking up a little bit of the shine. So it's just there on that left-hand stick. I can just see it glistening in the sun. If you go up a little bit, Seb, maybe we'll pick it up. There, between those little leaves there's a spider web that's floating and bouncing around, and I think that's what he's watching. Oh, look at, he's stretching now on the branch. Look at that. What are you doing? But look at the size of those claws and paws. How can you not enjoy it? It's much like us, I suppose. We drive around here and are constantly amazed by what we see, and constantly looking and like little kids going ooh and ah at all the things that are around. And it seems as though he has that same curiosity about life. You can't catch the spider web. It's not... Spider webs are not food for you, or play toys. You'll break it quickly. How cool is this though? Now, I believe we've got a bit of breakup. I do apologize. Like I say, we have had a few little gremlins, and we are in the Milwaukee, and we are live from Africa, and so these things do happen from time to time. And like I said, we are sending our stream all the way to the Mara, so every now and then there might be a little bit of picture breakup, which I do apologize about. So if you missed what I was saying, it was just that we were talking about him being so playful and adventurous and being much like us in the way that we explore this wilderness area. Michael, you want to know how he compares in size to Tandi's past male cubs at the same age? So Michael, I didn't get to see Bahuti when he was older. I saw him as a tiny cub, but I never saw him when he was a year old. And Wabayiza, obviously I spent a lot of time around. Wabayiza was probably not quite as big as Thamba. Wabayiza had a slightly different build. He was a lot shorter than what Thamba is now, and he was quite squat and heavy set, but he was definitely not the same size as what we see from Thamba. Thamba is a little bit larger, much bigger feet as well than what Wabayiza had. Bahuti, like I say, I can't really make a comparison because I didn't see him at the same age. But from what pictures and various other things that I saw, it seemed as though Bohoti was quite a big boy, and I would imagine that he would have been of a similar size. It's difficult though, like I say, without seeing them, it's just an assumption, and photographs are often misleading in the way that they look. Sometimes animals can look a lot larger than they actually are, so difficult to say. Unfortunately, didn't get to spend much time with him. I remember seeing him as a tiny little cub Bohoti, and that was just when I left Chitwa, and then slowly but surely developed into a beautiful male. And it's unfortunate, one of the males that also seems to have disappeared. I don't know what the actual situation was with him, or where he ended up, or what's actually happened, but he most definitely was also a beautiful cat, and I'll never forget him because I remember him being on a pangolin carcass, which was really quite something. At one stage he ate a pangolin. Right, now while little Thamba hides and shies away behind his little stump, let's go back across to Scotty, who's watching his river cams, and I'm sure in anticipation of a crossing.
Yes, certainly a lot of anticipation here, but it seems like the wildebeest have kind of moved back away from where they had a little drink, which I'm told is normal behavior, and now the area that they're heading into is looking more favorable for us to actually see a crossing, because where you can see the water flowing over the rocks, creating some rapids in front of us, this is where they cross. So I'm going to just zoom in. You see these little sandy gullies where all those crocodiles are waiting for them, and one or two dead wildebeest already there that have drowned. There, you can see that over there. So this is where they cross towards us, straight down the barrel of the very well-positioned camera. But it can take some time for them to pluck up the courage. They may not pluck up the courage at all today and head off in the opposite direction. Certainly good prospects though, and it was so exciting seeing them coming down to the water's edge for those of you who were with us on that part of the safari. I must say I am loving the images of young Thamba that Tristan has done a good job of finding for you. What an exquisite creature that is. Time to zoom in and show you what's going on over here. So they all came down and had a drink in this area, and now they seem to just be relaxing. What I would like to do is get you very close to them via more zooming. Oh, we'll start with the bird, a lapwing. Tick. And then across to all the gnu's, waiting patiently. I mean, imagine the conversations they are having with all of them there. What are they saying to one another? Who's in charge? Why are they not crossing? Who will make that decision on their behalf? It's all very, very interesting, and I'm not sure we will ever get to the bottom of how exactly it all works, but they seem to make sense of it somehow. But I mean, it would be not difficult for us to imagine their scenario. You put 200 or 300 of us in a life or death kind of scary situation, and say, okay, well, who's gonna call the shots here? Not that simple to work out. I'm going to go down to the main south. Actually, I'm not going to go down to the main south camera, because all I'm going to be able to show you there is vehicles. So there's not too much, but it is quite interesting. All the vehicles waiting very patiently, as are we. They just don't have the joy of jumping on other vehicles like Jamie's and Tristan's. So you guys are certainly in a very favorable position, being able to pop between different feeds, making your safari that much more exciting actually than the people who are actually here, sitting in one spot, not having the joy of being able to escape while the action is not very high. Stephen, you would like to know if this is the same crossing where the giraffes crossed the other day? Control officer, do you remember which? Main South. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to take you across to Main South crossing, and I'll be able to show you the vehicles. Bex, Q, Main South. Cha-ching! Okay, there we go. There you can see all the vehicles. They're looking on towards the wildebeest. like I said, waiting patiently. These guys, interestingly, are pointing the opposite direction. What do they know? What are those guides predicting? Is there something here? You see, a lot of the guides here have got years of experience, and even in our short time here and James's short time here, he's learnt that they prefer to cross further downstream from where they are now, and that may be not only in those rapids where I was showing you on the main north camera, but also somewhere over here. So all those wildebeest that we could see could start crossing at just a lower point than where they are massing at the moment. Let's see what they're up to. I think we've got a view of them up here. Okay. So they are heading what looks to be away from the river, but possibly slightly downstream. So maybe they're going to come to these points, and like I said, those vehicles over there are waiting for that to happen, whereas the other ones are waiting at the other possible crossing points. It's always a bit of a gamble, and lots of time is spent by tourists sitting and waiting for these epic crossings. A lot of people come to Kenya and Tanzania simply to see the crossings. That is one of the major highlights, especially amongst photographers. The giraffe, Stephen, I think they crossed where these vehicles are looking towards. I think this was the area that they crossed. Very good. So that is in fact the spot, as far as my little memory serves me. Marvelous. I've got good news. We are going to be, like I said, chopping and changing your views on this morning safari, unlike these poor people who are stuck in their vehicles waiting for the wildebeest to cross. So we will be sending you across to Tristan, who is now with a sleepy Thamba.
He's just very chilled. I think he's had a long night. He seems to be a lot more tired than what we saw yesterday. You can see his head is now buried firmly behind the log, and that is one sleepy cat. And most certainly if you drove past here now, there's no ways that you would see this cat. There's just not a possibility if you were in the Mulawati and driving, and even if you were on the banks on top, you'd have to be very lucky to see that, and hope that he just popped his head up and looked at you, because otherwise he's but certainly is not as active as he has been the last two drives. He's, I think, maybe tired from putting up such a big performance yesterday. He had the elephants to deal with in the morning, and in the afternoon he was up and down and all over the place. And so this grass. What is interesting is it looks like Thandi was here at some point yesterday or last night, because her tracks are in the Mulawati, like I was saying, going north from here. So I think potentially maybe she came back, checked on him, saw that he's okay, and then has gone off again to hunt and to go look around. Also, last night as we finished up and we left Thamba, Tingana crossed into our side, and who knows, maybe Thandi and Tingana have met up again and continued that little romance that we've had the past few weeks. Because no one has seen any tracks for Tingana leaving the property, so it's potentially that he's still here somewhere, like I say, with Thandi. A little bit of grooming going on. Got to keep the coat clean and look good when you're a rock star. Look at him peering out. What are you doing? Big yawn, and there you can see those hairs on the tongue, big canines. I remember the first few times we saw Thamba, he actually had his milk teeth in, so he had 4 canines, not just, 8 canines. Lapis Mundial, you want to know how do the cats keep their coat looking so clean and pretty? Well, by doing what he's doing right now, by grooming himself. So what they do is they've got very flexible bodies, and then they've got a tongue that is covered with fine hairs that have a hook-like structure to them, and they are able to then go through the coat, and it's almost like brushing your pet with a brush that you can buy from a store. It takes off all of the loose fur. It gets rid of any parasites that they potentially have, and also they have a bit of saliva, which just helps to clean off any of the dust and dirt. And so that's why they always look so healthy and so velvety, and as though they've been to the parlor and they've made themselves look absolutely perfect. So it's all just to do with the fact that they groom themselves effectively and often. Now I believe Jamie is sitting with some little sausages, and I can only imagine what those are.
Little sausages and big sausages, and essentially what that means is it's not breakfast time yet, certainly not for this particular pride of lions, and the reason we call them the sausages is because they are the sausage tree pride. And I'm thrilled to have caught up with these lionesses once again. They hold the territory adjacent to that of the Agamas, so right next door, and we've got our 2 lionesses with their tatty ears and the collection of 4 little ones following along behind. I have spent so long looking for you lot. Where have you been hiding? Apparently James was searching for them as well yesterday. Where have you lot been? What have you been up to? Not eating wildebeest, judging by some relatively empty bellies there. Lionesses in particular are looking rather hungry. And as they march along, you will see in the background the breakfast stop. How's that? I don't think they've realized there's a pride of lions walking past them. There's plenty of space, by the way, between the lions and the people having breakfast. These lions are used to it. This is a regular stop, so they're not going to go rushing off to claim some sausages of their own. Where's that 4th little cub? Oh, here it comes. Oh, it's always you, little one at the back. You are always the straggler. Here it comes. It's going to pop up behind the other 2. There, that one. There's such a little straggler of a cub. Okay, let's go catch up with them. Yay, sausages! Perhaps you can show me some of your other hiding places, so next time I know where to look. Because last week, I spent the Thursday night with the sausages, and then I did a bad thing. So they were quite full, and they went to sleep. And I accidentally fell asleep at around about 12 o'clock in the middle of the night, and when I woke up again at 2 o'clock, they were gone. Vanished. Completely vanished. I felt so bad. I mean, obviously we're meant to keep an eye on the animals, but I fell asleep up against the steering wheel, and I couldn't believe it when I woke up and they'd vanished, and I could not find them again. And I went back on the Friday and I searched high and low. I drove drainage line after drainage line searching for them. All of their regular hiding spots that I've seen them all of 4 times. Couldn't find them. So now I know just how far along the escarpment they go. And we're going to go into a thicket. Ladies, they're hungry. Now last week this entire place was black with wildebeest. Now there's not a wildebeest to be seen. We are going to the main road. Let us go onto the main road. We might have to do some bouncing along, so everybody hold on tight. And I know from experience it's not easy to get onto the main road here when you're off-road. So we're going to have to go away from the lions to get back to them. That's been a steep learning curve. Following lions and then I can't get back onto the main road. Okay, we're going to catch up with our lions and bounce past some mitre drains. Let's go back to Thamba, who's enjoying his morning.
Our little boy is still sitting in the same place and just watching the ongoings and the rustling of the grass as the wind blows, and he definitely is a lot more sleepy than he was yesterday. I suppose he also hasn't had the same motivations around. There hasn't been francolins and hyenas and elephants to keep him busy as there was yesterday morning, and so I think he's taking it very easy. And so what I was saying to Seb now is that if he starts to sleep again, what we might do is just let him have a nap and try and see if we can't go follow up on the Styx pride while they're around, and then come back to him. I don't think he's going to move too much today at all, much like yesterday. I think he might go towards Twin Dams for a drink, but otherwise I think he's going to be pretty stationary in this Milwaukee area. It's nice and shady, there's a bit of a breeze blowing today, and ultimately it is going to get quite warm. The sun is out and it already is on the warmer side, so I'm hoping that that's where he's going to end up for the day, but he certainly is very sleepy. I just enjoy watching him with the flies. He doesn't seem to really know what to do. He tries to grab them, but he's far too slow to actually catch any of them. You can see that they irritate him, but sometimes he just gets to the point where he just can't be asked. Sounds like some arrow-marked babblers behind us as well. Maybe it's actually the redwood hoopoe, sorry. They have such a similar call. Greenbilled. Mita? Hello Mita, how are you? I hope you're having a good day today. Now Mita, you're wondering about who has the longest tail, cheetah, lion, or leopard? Well Mita, the cheetah has the longest tail of them all in relation to the size of the body, and that's because the cheetah needs their tail for when they're running. It helps them to balance, and it helps them to turn quickly when they're chasing things like the gazelle, because the gazelle, they're able to turn very, very fast, and that's how they try to get away from the cheetah. The cheetah runs fast in a straight line, but it's difficult for it to turn when it's running so fast, and so you'll find that they need that long tail to help turn, to be able to catch the food that they're looking for. And then look at those claws and big feet. They've already got serious weapons inside there. That's a very cool view of a leopard paw. How cool is that? So you can see, look how the claws went back in. So they are not retractable. Everybody always often refers to them as retractable claws. Leopard claws and lion claws don't retract, they protract. So when they're in a relaxed position, you see, only when he forces them do they come out. Otherwise, they naturally stay inside. There we go. So protracting. If it was retracting, they would be out and he would pull them in. They naturally are inside, and only when he exerts force or pushes them do they come out. So that is called protraction, not retraction. What are you doing? You're almost climbing your way underneath that log now. So he's now positioned his head underneath, which means that if anything gives him a fright, he's going to hit his head on that stump, which will be completely ridiculous, but so in line with what he's like and what he ends up doing. But he's really now a very flat cat, so I think what we'll probably do is just leave him here to have a rest and to sleep, and try and see if we can't go and find that Styx pride. It certainly is a nice surprise, and to catch up with him and to see him again. He's been wonderful for us the last few drives, and we've spent so much time with him. But I feel as though we need to give him a little break and let him have a nice rest. And now that he's flat like this, I don't think he's going to get up to too much unless something motivates him. So what we'll do is go try and find the Styx pride. If we are not successful, you see he's going to hit his head at some point, I'm sure of it. If we're not successful, we will come back to Thamba and we'll come and try and see if he's still sleeping or if he's decided to move a little bit. But I don't think he's going very far at all. The fact that he's as flat as he is now tends to suggest that that's where he's going to stay for the day. But look at his belly. His belly is still quite large. He actually hasn't gone down too much. So I wonder if he didn't find something during the night again just to sustain himself. Be interesting to know. Anyway, right, while we go on our little expedition for the Styx pride, let's go back to Scott, who I believe has got some wildebeest who have changed their mind, and it always reminds me of that cartoon of the wildebeest that try and convince each other that it's a crocodile and not a log. They seem to change their mind quite a bit.
That is a very cool cartoon that Tristan is referring to, and it does actually give a good impression of what it's like in real life, to be honest. There's a seemingly kind of silliness to these wildebeest that cartoon emphasizes. And even now, I mean, their behavior, it doesn't make perfect sense. They've come down to the water, and now the thought about it, are now all heading back off in the opposite direction. Hello, Mano. You'd like to know if the wildebeest have a leader that they're following. There has to be some form of leadership within these herds. How exactly it works, I'm not too sure. I guess the older individuals command a little bit more respect, and also they also have a better kind of guiding effect on the younger members of the herd. But what it seems to be the case is that even if one young wildebeest was to throw itself into the river with no prior experience of crossing, that will trigger the rest to cross. So I think it's far less of a perfect science than us humans make it out to be. Let's see if we can get up to these vultures. Wow! Oof, you see, my control's working a bit too quickly now. I'm getting a bit too excited. Forgive me if you're not feeling well after that rapid journey into the sky and then back down to the ground. So some vultures doing their business. Can't really see them too well anymore. They've floated out of frame. But yes, I mean, must be some kind of decision makers within the herd, but it doesn't appear. Now we're going to switch across to main south camera so I can give you some different views of the herds disappearing. Ooh, I've got a bit of a sneeze. Excuse me, coming on there. Ooh. So now you can see all the wildebeest also heading away from the main south crossing. So this crossing camera is slightly further downstream from the one we were looking at earlier, and sadly the wildebeest are streaming past it. But you'll be glad to know that I've been told by James that it's not uncommon for them to kind of walk completely out of frame, disappear away from the river, and then work their way back down. Hello to Pansy Dewey Mom. You would like to know which is more numerous, the zebra or the wildebeest, and the wildebeest are far more numerous than the zebra. Probably about 3 times to 4 times the amount of wildebeest relative to zebra that I've seen in the migrating herds. What I haven't noticed is large amounts of Thompson's gazelle migrating, so I don't know if that's a myth or a fallacy, but I don't seem to be noticing large amounts of those creatures coming and going from this part of the park or reserve that we're in, but it may simply be that they are moving in different areas. The migration doesn't happen in a very small area. It happens over huge, huge areas, and even though we have access to a lot of that, it doesn't mean we are always in the right place at the right time to share with you what is going down. 2 hunters here in screen. One is a yellow-billed stork looking for fish. The other is a crocodile. Very big crocodile. Ooh. I wonder where it's going. Possibly to sun itself on the other side. My World, Your Music, you would like to know how many of these dinosaurs occur in the Mara River. There's going to be all, big ones and small ones and medium-sized ones, but let's just talk about the big ones. I'm guessing, along the whole stretch of the Mara River, which is probably about 40 kilometers from the top of the triangle down to the bottom of the triangle in Tanzania. I guess it's about 30, 40 kilometers long, and within each stretch of river, I would say there's at least 10 ginormous dinosaur crocodiles. So 10 times 40 is at least minimum 400 big crocodiles would be an estimate. For me, I'm not sure if anyone is going to know a more accurate figure than that or be able to do a better guesstimate, but that is kind of what I reckon. What's this over here? Hello to Haley Art. I thought I'd seen a crocodile there, but it's just a log. You would like to know, have humans ever had to induce a migration? And not that I know of, and I hope not. And even if I don't see why we as humans would have had to have done that. as a general rule, it's best for us not to get involved. And if it gets to the point where we start needing to get the wildebeest to migrate, it means we are not in a pretty situation, and it means we have already disrupted the ecosystem to what I would say is a terrible, terrible degree. Mother Nature should be left alone to work out her own problems. Okay, well, the wildebeest and zebra are, it's definitely safe to say, are heading away from this crossing, but the good news is Jamie has found some other action, so why don't you go and see what it is for yourselves.
It is the sausages finding a nice comfortable spot in the shade, and this is exactly what I was hoping for, that they'd settle somewhere beautifully and wait for me to come and rejoin them this afternoon. But let's just get a little bit closer, see what's happening. Just want to investigate. It's always a 50-50 gamble when they lead you to a spot like this. The entire area around here, the Mara Triangle, this northern end, is cut through by a system of very deep luggers, drainage lines, and you never know which side the animal's going to actually end up on, so you end up having to take a gamble at the beginning and hope you get lucky and that's the side that they choose to be on. And unfortunately, our gamble in this case has not paid off. And oh, that's a sheer drop. Let's not go that way, Dave. I don't want to die. Not this way anyway. Ooh, I wonder where the ground ends. I wonder where the ground ends. And it just becomes grass. I think I'm going to turn around. Now, Mridul, while we turn around and get a better view and make life for Dave a little easier, we want to know who the possible fathers of these cubs are. The same fathers of the Agama cubs, as far as I know. I have seen the Sausage Pride interacting with that same dominant coalition as the Agama Pride. Now that coalition is the one that includes Fang, the one with a missing tooth, the big dark-maned male, and a male lion called Halftail, who, you guessed it, has half a tail. So there are 3 solid members of that coalition, and actually there's a 4th one that spends a lot of time hanging around them, or hanging in the same areas. So it might be that you've got a coalition of 4 rather than 3. But he's a relative newcomer, and dynamics are always shifting out here. So those are the possible fathers. I've seen them interact with him, which inevitably means that no matter the truth, those male lions think they are the fathers of these cubs. Because otherwise, of course, true to natural instinct, they would kill them so that they could pass on their own genetic line to the females. This is a nice spot, ladies. Do you want to stay here for tonight? Our Laurie Lee, while we watch our notched up lionesses, you want to know if any of us ever see any of Notch's sons. The 2 remaining Notch boys, I think is now unfortunately 1 remaining Notch boy. I saw them a few times when I was on the other side of the river, so did Dave. We actually watched them spend a huge amount of time with one of the lion prides on the southern section across the other side of the Mara River towards Salas, where we spent our first few weeks. Oh, this is so sweet. It's like a giant washing session. So we have seen members of the Notch Coalition. And unfortunately, it seems as though, obviously I haven't had this confirmed, I've only been back a day, but it seems as though one of the members of the Notch Coalition, Caesar, has not made it. I know he was in terrible condition when I left, and it seems as though, unfortunately, he was an old boy, and unfortunately his condition just deteriorated. But yes, I have seen 2 of the Notch boys. Isn't that beautiful? And now we're up again. And of course we're on the wrong side of the drainage line. But perhaps she's just finding a place to settle. Such distinctive looking lionesses. Hello, pretty girl. With your scrappy ears. So a week ago, Brent and I were pretty much in the same area when he had that lioness that kept killing the baby wildebeest and then not quite doing a complete job and then having to go back to the next one. And we think that that's a member of this pride, but I've only ever seen these two lionesses together with these cubs. Oh, look at that lean belly. Beautiful and lithe, but also in need of a good meal. We're only settling here temporarily, I imagine, just because this was a nice patch of shade. I think we're going to be up again shortly. And we've been very lucky in that we knew exactly where these lions were going, otherwise we probably would never have found them. Let's go back to Tristan, who's also got us some very well-hidden lions.
Well, as you can see there is the telltale pug marks of the Styx pride walking down Ledwood Road. So they're heading straight towards the Mulawati and really not far from where Thamba is lying up at the moment. There is one lioness that we do have already. She's in the bush at the moment, but they're busy hunting Nyala, so we've got no visual of her really. She's kind of low down, and I don't want to off-road anywhere near her because she's walking straight towards where those Nyala are, and I don't want for her to get disturbed by us. But Seb, what I'm going to do is just turn around because I actually just got a glimpse of her walking quite far from where we are now. So let's just quickly turn around. She's low down, busy trying to stalk and trying to get closer to these Nyala. I don't know where the rest of the pride is. They seem as though they've already gone through, but this is, like I say, not far from Thamba, so I'm hoping that they rather turn towards Twin Dams and head that way than turning north up the Mulawati, because I'm a little bit nervous for old Thamba with the lions around. Brayley, you want to know if the lions ever hunt large prey like giraffe? Well, Brayley, yes, most certainly. They will hunt large prey. They'll go after giraffe. In this area, not as much as in maybe some other sections of the Kruger Park area. I know that the giraffe in the central sections are often hunted by the lions, and here we tend to find they hunt buffalo a lot more. So giraffe can and is part of the diet at times, and there have been a few giraffe being killed by lions that I've seen in the Sabi sands. It does happen from time to time, but it's generally older, sicker individuals that are easier to bring down. Funny enough, we once had a male lion, the Styx male, talking about the Styx, who was able to catch a giraffe all on his own, which was really quite something. He brought down a giraffe by himself. Now this lioness is somewhere here on the left, Seb. I saw her moving this direction. I don't know where she's gone. Across the road, you're easily visible by antelope species, so she's to this bush.
Oh, sorry about that, everyone. Now you've got a dangling bungee cord. That was terrible timing to have lost Tristan, but it's just one of those things. Beautiful, Dave, beautiful. What were you trying to do? Prop our roof up? It is getting rather droopy in the middle, and we have to sort of bungee it up in the middle, and at the same time always, of course, being very wary of the risks of the bungee cord. I will try and catch up with our lions in a moment. I just have to wait for the opportunity. And there go our lions, of course on the wrong side of our drainage line. Horrible beasts. Could I get across here? Absolutely not. Not short of causing grievous bodily harm to somebody. Possibly just Mila, the vehicle. Dave's throwing bungee cords around. He's frustrated too. Okay, now what? Do we take a chance? So we've got two chances to take here. One is we could stay on this side of the drainage line and follow them till I find a place to cross. They could, of course, walk away from me. Or I could run the risk of losing them and go all the way around and not find them again. So is a line in the hand worth 2? This drainage line does not get any better up ahead. I fear this is farewell sausages. I'm tempted to stay where I can see them. What does everybody else seem to be doing? They know this area better. No, these lions are really truly walking away from us. But I don't think there's another road on the other side. So I think that changes our minds. I think that makes our decision for us. Where exactly have I lost them? Yeah. Oh! Hold on, everybody. And a very good morning to Hardly, and welcome to your sunrise safari while we inch our way over these massive bumps. You want to know if the alpha males stick with the pride? Sometimes. Generally speaking, not always, but most of the time you'll find that the dominant males, whether it's 1 or whether it's 3 or 4, however many there are dominant in an area, they will have several prides that they are actually dominant over. So what I mean by that is they move from pride to pride. Sometimes they're on their own, marking their territory. Their territory essentially encompasses the territories of several different lionesses, and they'll move between them. If the females are an estrus, they might spend a bit more time. If the females are proving to be highly efficient at hunting, the males will spend time with them because they'll just steal their food, and so on. So you don't necessarily, in fact, I would say most of the time you won't find a male with a pride, but you will see it. Alrighty. Rebecca's having a beautiful day today. I've had some amazing moments coming through my ear. I'm going to catch up with our sausages. Let's go to a yellow-billed bird in the water.
Yes, we do have a yellow-billed bird. It has pink legs and a red face. There's a crocodile just behind it. And this is a yellow-billed stork. And I've just been thinking to myself, imagine spending your whole day just looking for food. And I mean, that's what a lot of birds do, especially, not so much the crocodiles. They can chill out for long periods of time without worrying about their next meal. They can merely shut their body down, and therefore use very little energy. Whereas this bird, I mean, the patience and persistence of just slowly waving its beak. I'm trying to think of the right word, but my adjectives are lacking this morning, of that motion as it slides its open beak through the water. No, doesn't sound right either. Any assistance for an adjective of what this motion is that the bird is doing would be appreciated. But I mean, you must all agree that this is serious, serious persistence. And yes, thank you, Bex. It's combing the water. I like combing. Combing the Mara River with an open beak, hoping to pluck out a little fish. I mean, I'm actually going to do a little bit of an experiment here. I'm going to start counting how many times it has to comb its bright yellow beak through the water before it catches something. So we can maybe start on 20, because oh! What was that? Sure, look at how close this crocodile is to it. No concerns from the bird, which is interesting. A crocodile, if it wanted to, could definitely and would definitely snack on a bird, but I guess there's just such a plentiful amount of wildebeest meat floating along the river that they can be a little bit fussy at this time of the year. What's interesting is that some of you may remember from one of the TV shows a couple of weeks ago, we saw a flock of about 4 or 5 of these yellow-billed storks hunting as a team. And you wonder why this one's all on its own and how much more productive they would be if they all did hunt as a team. And interesting that sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Michael, you'd like to know if crocodiles ever get full, and yes, they will certainly have a capacity at which they can no longer feed. How much meat they can fit into their belly and how quickly they actually burn through the fuel that they are feeding on at this time of the year, I'm not too sure, but they must have a limit to how much they can feed on. That is for certain. R. Lara Moore, another question on crocodiles. You would like to know how long do they live for, and I'm told up to 100 years of age is not uncommon for a crocodile's lifespan. They can live for very long periods of time. And imagine being able to follow the life of a crocodile. I mean, that would be fascinating. They get born as about a 20 to 30 centimeter little lizard-like creature, and then have got a very long and possibly dangerous journey before they actually grow into these big behemoths that very little will be able to predate. So once they do get to full size, there's not much that's going to hurt them other than probably other crocodiles and or illness or lack of food. But the initial years certainly are not that easygoing regarding threats, and all manner of beasts, even maybe one of these yellow-billed storks would be able to feed on a baby crocodile. But yes, it would be a very, very interesting tale to hear the life of a crocodile. I guess just like us as humans, they may not be able to remember the initial stages of their life, but they are certainly fascinating beasts. This one possibly heading out into the sun now. Let's keep an eye on it. It'll also be cool to see it come out the water. I'm almost certain it's going to, judging from its direction of movement. Oh, they are such cool animals. Extremely, extremely powerful. And even though it's looking quite slow and sedate right now, when they need to turn on the gas, they certainly can, and incredibly, incredibly powerful. Oh, look at this.
Yeah.
This guy seems to have quite a big overbite. I don't know if it's missing the bottom of its jaw. The end. It is. Do you know this one, James? Oh, James knows this one.
Not intimately.
Really interesting. James hasn't given it a name. He says he doesn't know it intimately yet, but with a few more weeks and months here, who knows, maybe this guy will have a name and a bit more of a personality. Good, well, it seems to have perched itself just enough out of the water to gather some sun, and the good news is you guys are going to be heading back to Tristan shortly. I'm not too sure what he's up to. Let me have a squiz. I can't see his feed at the moment, but it sounds like he has some lion.
Now, you can see we've got 2 of the Styx lionesses that have ended up being in the middle of a thicket. I don't know where the 3rd lioness is with all the cubs, but definitely these 2 females are stopping and listening and looking. It is windy, so maybe they are hearing things and they could potentially be waiting for the cubs. Maybe the cubs have fallen behind a little bit. There was tracks for them around, so I was hoping that they would be here. But you can see they've stopped and they've looked. They're looking much better, the Styx, than the last time I saw them. Is Anami wondering what the Styx are doing in the Nkuma's territory? Well, they're not in the Nkuma's territory at all. The Nkuma's territory lies to the north of us and to the west of us. This has been Styx territory ever since I can remember. They've always moved around on this, right on the southern boundary. They don't go far north into Djuma, but they do go towards Twin Dams, and you'll often find them in the southeastern corner. Going is almost impossible. It is very dense, very thick, and not at all easy to negotiate, but we shall certainly try and see if we can't keep up with them. It's not going to be easy, though, I can tell you. So at least we got a glimpse of them. If they do disappear, it's at least a small glimpse of the two of them, although they're lying down right here, which is fantastic. Actually, one is lying down, the other one is still moving slightly. There we go. There's one of the lionesses. She's just on my right. You can hear, listen, they're contact calling. So they're calling the cubs and the other female. I'm not sure how many cubs they've got, because there was reports that there was a new litter, but we haven't seen them since then. So the last time we saw the Styx Pride, there were 6 cubs. There was 4 younger ones and 2 older ones. So hopefully they'll come bounding out of the bush shortly. Now you see, it's just soft calls to tell the cubs, come on, we're waiting for you, or to tell the other female, we're here, come find us. She doesn't want to make a full-blooded roar, because that will attract the attention of males and potentially females that could be close by, that might be from a rival pride like the Nkurumas. So it's soft contact calls just to get the cubs and the other female to come here. Now hopefully Thamba is listening very carefully and is hearing this and is going to move off slightly. Riedel, you want to know how we recognize the Styx? Well, Riedel, they are a lot older. Well, this particular lioness we're looking at now, she's much older than most of the Nkurumas, and for me the Styx just have a different look. Look, she's stalking. She's stalking. Here come the cubs. Look, there's going to be a bit of playing. There comes one of the cubs. Oh, look at that. Isn't that magnificent? Look how happy she is to see them. So even though she's a big adult lioness, she's taking just as much joy in being able to see her cubs, and a little bit of playing around as well. So, Riedel, back to your question as how we ID them. For me, this particular female is quite tatty. She's got tattered ears. She's got a much older look about her. There she is. And they have a very different face to what we see from the Styx. I mean, from the Nkurumas. The Nkurumas have a much more squared off jaw than what I see on the Styx Pride. The Styx tend to have a longer muzzle in sort of my mind. Also the fact of where they occur, the Styx are generally in the southern portions, and there's only 3 of them. So when we find tracks of the 3 of them and the cubs, oh, look at this playing. You must be careful, little one. Mom's patience won't last all the time. Oh, look at this, guys. Isn't this wonderful? We are being so spoiled at the moment. It's late in the morning, but yet we're still getting playful nature by them. And I'm wondering where the rest of the cubs are. You can see the cub is still biting Mom. So Mom's trying to ignore it, but the biting will get more and more and sore, and eventually she'll have to start. Now the Franklins are alarm calling quite a bit, so I would imagine that the rest of the pride is slowly but surely filtering through now, and we should see more of them arriving, which means that hunting session for now is over. As soon as they start vocalizing like this, they're no longer looking to be hunting extensively. They're more just wanting to kind of spend time resting now. And there we go, you can see they're lying down. So, oh, little cub, you're being very cheeky. But how cool was that when the 2 of them were playing and she was jumping around? Now look, a bit of grooming from the little one. Oh, and rubbing up. And like I say, they are looking a lot better. The last time we saw them, which I don't know how many weeks ago that was, it's on the mangy side. Which were showing a bit of symptoms of mange. And so for those of you who don't know what mange is, there's the other adult lioness. Let me just go forward a little bit. Symptoms of mange is basically a mite that occurs in the hair follicles. Look how she's sniffing. Wow, that's a beautiful picture of her in the long grass with the light behind her, sniffing. And so mange occurs on them and it causes them to itch and they get these little bald patches. So they were presenting some signs of mange, but it seems as though that all has cleared up a little bit and they're looking a lot better than the last time we saw them. So a good couple meals maybe, and they've certainly come right now. But look how she's just watching. She's still sniffing. So this must be the female that we saw originally stalking because of the way that she is at the moment. And there's the two playing still. I wonder where the rest of the cubs are. Just given that there's only one here, there must be another older cub with them somewhere. Sorry, my girl, we parked in the way. She's just going to go over. And here comes the other one. But they're looking as though they've had a meal in the last day or two. There certainly is a lot of bulge. And you can see this female that's coming now is a female that must have fairly new cubs, because you'll see now as she comes past that her teats are hanging quite extensively. So I wonder if she doesn't have newer cubs, because that's a lot of milk. I know there are the 4 younger cubs, but they are already quite old in comparison. So maybe she's got new cubs. That'll be quite cool to see. Those are definitely teats that have got a lot of milk in them. I'm just trying to see the other lioness that's behind us. She should get up now and start walking as well. What is interesting is that there's no other cubs have emerged yet, so we've not seen any others coming through. I wonder if this female's waiting for the rest of the cubs to arrive, because she's just lying next to us and still looking in the way that the rest came. Nope. Small this morning, because one lioness, or 2 of the lionesses, look as though they're quite healthy and full. There they go, striding down the road. Right, Seb, let's turn around so we can keep up with this lot. What an epic morning. Birmingham males, Styx Pride, Thamba. I've just had a report that Mvula has just crossed into Djuma as well, so it's just chaos here this morning, which is fantastic for us. I'm not complaining in any way, shape or form. Are you, Seb? No, I don't think so. Seb is saying no. Right, now I'm going to try and turn around and get with the Styx Pride and keep up with them and see if we can't find the rest of these little cubbies. While we do that, let's go back to Jamie, who I think is also with lions, and a little bit more stationary than ours.
Ours are most definitely not going anywhere, and at least I managed to pick the right side of the drainage line to settle us on. So we've managed to catch up with them, and that's great news for us this afternoon. I mean, it sounds as though Tristan's morning has been truly extraordinary. We have to try and keep up here in the Mara. Now what I'm going to be doing is dropping a GPS pin right here. And then I can decide whether or not this will be the place we spend the evening. On, who is a new viewer, I'm having a little quiet chuckle there. One of our new viewers would like to know whether or not the show only shows lions, or if Rebecca, I can't hear that name. Is it Lan? Lance. Right, I get it now. Lance, sincere apologies. No, we don't only show lions, although it has very much been a lion-filled morning. But there is plenty of life out here for us to show you, essentially. And whilst I would say that our migration experience has been largely cheetah and lion themed in the Masai Mara, no, we don't just show lions. We show cheetahs, we show leopards. I mean, Tristan's been with little Thamba, the leopard cub. We show elephants. In the Masai Mara, we're fortunate enough to be able to show rhino and birds. A lot of our viewers actually have an ongoing bird list, both here in the Masai Mara and, of course, in South Africa as well, in the Sabi sand. And some of our viewers are well over 200 birds now, different species that we've put on camera during our live safaris. Bugs, spiders, that of course is what our bushwalk is for. So absolutely, it's not just about the big hairies and scaries. There's little things out here to be enjoyed as well. But when the hairies and scaries basically step out into the road in front of you, one can hardly resist sticking with them for a little while, especially such hungry ones. I admit though, I've had quite a lion-filled morning. We show hyenas, show wild dogs. There's plenty to see, Lance, if you stick around, and I'm sure you will. And I'm sure all of our viewers will join in welcoming Lance to the Safari Live addiction that apparently it becomes. Okay, sleepy lions. That, I think, is going to be the extent of their movement. But they've chosen a very pretty spot for a midday nap underneath the Olololo escarpment. It's beautiful here. It's actually hard to know they're even there. Right, give me a second. I'm going to drop a location pin so that I know where to find them again, although I'm pretty sure I will, but just in case it's not me that's trying to find them, I think I would be able to find this place again. So while I mark my location, since our lions are not planning on going anywhere really, let's go back and follow Tristan's with him.
Well, we're still with the Styx Pride. They're still slowly moving through the long grass here, but the problem is that we are going straight towards where we left Thamba sleeping. I can see the big tree that we were under earlier straight in front of us, and if they continue in the route that they're going to go, they're going to walk straight into him. So I hope little Thamba has heard these lions calling already and has decided to move on, because the last thing I would want is for these guys to go after him. Remember that the Styx Pride are responsible for killing Tandi's first cub, Wabayiza, so